Hello.
Hey,
Hi.
Hello.
Hello.
so Bishop, we are just again excited, thankful for that word that you gave at our event. I'm encouraging this group, the Restoring Creation, to understand that we have a pivotal role in just getting the message out. But we find that our churches serve in communities where the impacts of climate change continue to disproportionately and adversely color rural, impoverished communities and environmental justice communities. And we're excited about the vision of the future church. But we want to hear you talk a little bit about how LRC can join with you in this great endeavor. We would like to hear specifically of your thoughts on how we can both amplify and include voices not so often at our tables, and the witnesses, like we've already started talking, examples of inclusion that give us hope and reason to celebrate and be encouraged. And then the third piece that I'd like you, I'm saying the same question that you had written. I've just kind of rephrased it, but no holds barred and no holding back. What would you like to see on the future church climate justice plate? And how might we serve this to our church? And then hopefully in serving it to the church would change our palates so that we might be able to be able to become accustomed to a new kind of diet, particularly needed in these COVID times and the gun and domestic violence times and the political transition. How can we feed on this in a better way so that we can be energized to do the work that we're doing? I know that's a lot, but
I'll give it a try.
Okay.
And I'm welcome to your ideas too. That we've been working on this future church and new design in some iteration for as long as I've been at least a synod bishop. I remember I was on a group working on this. But my hope and the hope for this design is that it's not just people in Chicago cooking up programs and ideas and then sending them out to the provinces and you guys just put them into play. That doesn't work. And we also realize that there's amazing talent and giftedness amongst all our members. So how do we tap into that? So that's why we're trying, I know this is jargon, but trying to flatten the organization and involve more of us, particularly in some of these really important projects and initiatives. And what you've mentioned, Pastor, about the intersectionality of climate change, poverty, hunger, the displacement of people, mass migration, the extraordinary burdens that women and girls face, that's all tied together. So we're trying in this design is to include this understanding of intersectionality. I think the service and justice home area, and Rafael Malpica Padilla he's leading that group up. But I just taped we don't tape anymore, do we? I just videoed a message about what's going on in Jerusalem. And we said there can't be peace without justice. And as we're doing service and justice, that has to happen. Everywhere where we're working. Now, I had a chance to go to Honduras. Well, not in 2020, we didn't go anywhere, but the year before. And it's just there's flooding, so farmers can't work. There's drought in places, so they can't work. The crime and the gangs is a real thing. The government is corrupt. And so now you have people that can't farm because of the climate, or because of the government, or because of criminality, or they're just impoverished, and so they have to leave. And so they come here or other places, and then, as you said before, I think our economy could not function, particularly the agricultural sector, if we did not have the migrants engaged in farming. So it's all connected. We see this in South Sudan as well. I mean, this war has been going on forever. There's drought, and it falls most heavily on the people who are most marginalized. So taking a look at that, seeing that climate change is a theological issue, which you have always held up. It's a spiritual issue because I believe in many cases human beings have disassociated ourselves from the creation, and that's damaging to us. But it's a justice issue as well.
One of the images that I tried to lift up a minute ago, when I didn't always, well, I didn't get to go to fine restaurants till I got to college. And so a couple of times I got to go to a fine restaurant, and they used to serve these courses, and I couldn't understand what was going on when they would serve the salad and then they would serve something else. And then they'd bring a mint by and gave me a mint in the middle of the meal. And I was, what the hell's going on? I don't understand what this mint has to do with it. And then finally I learned that sometimes you had to put something in your diet to change your palate, because what you were about to eat, you couldn't eat because you had the stuff that you had before. Right now, we're in a church that really needs its palates changed, because we're eating we've added a lot of junk. And now to be able to eat that foretaste for the feast to come, there's a palate changing going on. How can we clear our palate from the bitterness and some of the anger and frustrations and fear that we've experienced? And so what do you think about palate changing, and what do we need to do in the gospel message that kind of helps us with that? You did some of it with the Good Shepherd. I mean, the shepherd makes sure that you get to the water, and you make sure you graze in the right fields and that kind of thing. But do you get that sense that we're going to have to change some palates because we've been feeding off some bitter stuff that kind of has us, well, I'm not going to say names, but I'll just give you the general piece. Yeah.
The former guy, that's what you're going to say.
Yeah.
That's true. I'm pretty sure in 2016, more than half of our people probably voted for the former guy. I don't know how it worked out in 2020. So there's a church already that's, maybe doesn't think or they thought that maybe that, or the populism was the palate cleanser. But it's interesting in the Passover Haggadah that the Jews still have the bitter herbs to remember their bitter time. There might be some of that might be helpful, not for all parts of the church, because experiencing bitter times is not evenly shared, but to be reminded of that. But certainly the gospel is the greatest palate cleanser, and baptism should be as well. And I'm not, Luther had such a rich theology about baptism, but think about the whole thing. We've been buried with Christ. We've died with him in a death like his. We're being washed with water, this precious gift. As they would say, standing rock water is life. And I remember Bishop Donald Chris, who's the bishop in Southeast Michigan. Flint is one of his. Flint is one of the cities in his town, and he went there, and he said, the water, it was filthy. It was filthy. And he says, we couldn't, he has tears in his eyes. We couldn't even baptize anybody with this kind of water. So just this whole understanding that we have been changed. We don't always act like it, that it's God's word, but attached to this beautiful element that is absolutely necessary for life. And that all of us are eligible to receive this sacrament. All of us receive God's grace. All of us are claimed by God. Not one group of people claiming supremacy and holding other people down. And neither are human beings more worthy of care than the rest of the creation. I don't know. That's the best I can think of right now.
No, this is a conversation, and that's the truth. Is we want to have more conversations because nobody's got it figured out, and that's why we want to hear your ideas and support you, and we want to share with you some of the stuff we're struggling with.
Yeah,
so we're in this together. We are in this together.
Yeah, I think that's one of the blessings of this lockdown and the pandemic is that even though we're physically separated, in a lot of ways, we see people are more connected on a regular basis, which is helpful. And I hope, I don't want to put more work on you, all of you pastors and leaders, but I hope that we continue with our digital presence for folks. The other, which became very frustrating for me this past summer, but the other unexpected, unintended benefit was that the earth had a chance to rest during 2020. And then you'd hear these stories about the people in India could finally see the Himalayas because the smog was gone. And I know here the wildlife really picked up. And so unfortunately, the rabbits and the squirrels didn't everything I tried to grow, but there was this break for all of the created world, and I think for us as well, even though this is a highly stressful situation. But I will be sad to see if we go back to the levels of pollution that existed before the pandemic.
Okay, we have two hands that are raised, Heidi and then Barbara.
Okay.
I want to sort of get back to the challenge of talking to dairy farmers and cattle ranchers. My aunt and uncle are dairy farmers in Illinois, in Quad Cities area, in Lutheran. And so I'm thinking about how, like, I think there's some money in Biden's infrastructure bill for people who were in coal industries and so forth to relearn new skills and get jobs in alternative energy or solar panels or whatever. And I feel like we need something similar for dairy farmers and cattle ranchers, that maybe they're not feeling the need for it now, but I think meat consumption is going down, and people are learning about this, and so they don't maybe realize a need for changing over to something yet, but the market itself will make them do that. But it would be nice if we had like some Lutheran farmer who was doing this and had realized it and was switching over his production to less pesticides and less cattle and whatever, and could be like that champion out there educating others. Farmer to farmer would be the way to go, not somebody from the city, right?
No, though, urban farmers can learn from other farmers. That would be, and maybe we'll give that'll be an assignment for you or someone, not you personally, but LRC. But that's true, and we know that there must be people out there who are doing this, who have, like the rancher and the farmers I met when I was in North Dakota, and yeah, and I think it's farmer to farmer, rancher to rancher. One thing though we do work on, so this job is great. I've gotten to see a lot of parts of the world I never would have. So I was in Tanzania, and to see the work that the LWF and we through the Lutheran World Federation are doing with these are very, very small scale farmers, but helping them to have biodiversity in the crops that they grow. And then this is great. I mean, it's kind of gross, but it's brilliant. Is that they often cook over wood fires, which that's not good because they use wood. The smoke is pretty intense. It's bad for their lungs. It's bad for the kids. And so that we have developed this way, and we have this technology. I got to see it work, where you take cow manure, and then you put it in you're going to make it turn into methane gas, and then that can be used in a much cleaner way for cooking and even for lighting. But I mean, the way they do it, it's like yuck, but it's brilliant. And so I know that in Tanzania, for sure, the Lutheran Church there, probably others, and the Lutheran World Federation are working with these very small scale farmers so that they can have a sustainable livelihood and take care of the land and not depend on one crop. So they can diversify. So I think that's good. I don't know, who can talk to the farmers and say, we want a farmer to talk to us?
And we are trying to lift up more of them. Sarah had just mentioned that the woman who was reading the gospel and had a goat trying to attack her Bible in our in our worship service, Sarah, the Bowers family.
Oh yeah, I know her really well.
Yes, yeah, we're going to share her story later in a connections call. There are lots of these stories that we're trying to lift up piece by piece, but I have to say, as a nonprofit, it's taking a lot of time to figure out how to get in touch with all of these people. So we're trying to put them on a map. So I do wonder, as far as the institution, like how better can we work with the institution of the ELCA? Because as an affiliate, it is great that we're very nimble and can do this sort of thing. But I also feel like sometimes we don't have the momentum we might need. I mean, honestly, having you as part of our worship has helped incredibly. So that's a big leap. But just having more people know about us and that we can be a hub of that information. If you have any ideas for us how to be better heard, and that we're not just the people who recycle in the Lutheran Church. Yeah,
that's a good point. And I'm wondering, what Raphael, leads the service and justice home area, but he always talks about how we can deepen and extend the ministries that we have. And I'll see, I'll talk to him, but also to our communications people. Yeah, how can we deepen and extend the work that you're already doing? Yeah. And another thing I think for folks, we recycle here, we compost here, which is funny because both of us grew up in not in the rural areas, but my husband's like into composting now. And there's a service here in Skokie where they'll come and pick up your compost. I don't even have to do the work. But anyways, we can all do that. Every one of us, every individual could do that, and we would not make a dent in the amount of plastics that are being pumped into the environment on a regular basis. So I think advocacy is also an important role for all of us. And I know that Ruth Ivory Moore does a tremendous job, and our Washington office does too.
Bishop Eaton, if I can just jump in, and I didn't have this as a question in advance, but just to pull together a couple things, what Kristen had said about her congregation is growing during this pandemic. And part of it is because of the virtual presence. She's so skilled at producing these worship services, and Jeff also, and Sarah. So I guess what I wanted to ask you is if you would be willing to do more video appearances, maybe short videos. I think when we get into some of these really hard issues like farming, climate, you are the face of the church in the same way that Pope Francis is for Catholics or whatever. And Bishop Curry preached this wonderful opening sermon at the Ecumenical Advocacy Days. I mean, I still go back to that. I'm quoting it in a Bible study I'm writing. I would love to hear more videos from you, short videos, whatever, because I think people trust it's the kind of personal representation function of a head of a church that would make it possible to have change happen from you going on the air and telling us about Jesus the Good Shepherd, and then what that means for cows and farms and everything.
I listened to that sermon. I forgot what I said. I'm glad it was helpful.
But I guess that would be the question is, would you consider, I know Bishop Curry's, constantly out there and stuff, but we'd love to see you more in these kind of spiritually guiding roles to help us on videos.
No, absolutely. And I do tape, and we don't tape anymore. I do record a video every week. It's a brief weekly message. So I'm doing that, and that's possible. What would be helpful would be if you folks would come up with a strategy and then work with Jocelyn Fuller. Do any of you know her? She's the head of strategic communications. And then we could develop a schedule or a calendar, and I can video these things and then make them available for the work that you're doing. Well, and I don't want to, St. Paul says we're not to think more highly of ourselves than we ought. Right. But the strategic use of my voice is important. And then someone had said earlier on, if we could have a farmer talking to farmers, or rancher to ranchers or
Right.
urban gardeners giving this message. I could be used perhaps in other ways, because I know it's still kind of surprising to me, but it's kind of a draw when I'm on. But so I want to garner the attention of other folks, but then these voices who are living this, it would also, so we should think of we need to develop a strategy around that. There's so many issues that are pressing all of the time, that how do we, with the intersectionality, particularly with climate change and all these other issues, I'm trying to figure out, and also with the new church design, future church design, how can we start networks and working together where it doesn't have to be centralized, and in fact, it probably should not be from Chicago.
Mhm.
So how do we activate everybody to say, no, we are the ELCA? So that's you don't have to answer that question. I'm still working on that myself.